Ah, what a lovely day in Bosnia. Oh, now I'm dead.
With the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand and an extensive network of peacetime alliances in Europe, mainland Europe descended into the largest armed conflict up to that point. Germany and Austria declared war on Serbia, and shortly after, Russia mobilized its army to prepare for war to protect Serbia. This prompts Germany to declare war on Russia, and since France is allied with Russia, they also join the war. Germany then attacks France through Belgium to attempt a quick victory over France to avoid a dual-front war. Britain and a few other countries had a vow to protect Belgium's borders, and with Germany's invasion, they declared war on the Central Powers. The colonies of the countries were also dragged into the war, causing a small conflict between a few countries to explode into a full-scale world war. Woodrow Wilson wanted the United States to stay neutral in the war, but he allowed industry to send supplies to the Allies. This caused many problems, however, because of German U-boats which would sink many of the ships shipping supplies. When the Lusitania was sunk by a U-boat, Wilson condemned Germany's all-out submarine warfare. The fact that the Lusitania was not a supply ship and was rather a passenger ship made the whole event much more powerful. Later, the Zimmermann telegram and Germany's relaunched U-boat campaign edged the United States into the war.
Unknown literature. The rules are simple. I either get it right or I don't. We intend to begin on the 1st of February unrestricted submarine warfare. We shall endeavor, in spite of this, to keep the United States of America neutral. In the event of this not succeeding, we will make Mexico a proposal of alliance on the following basis: make war together, make peace together, generous financial support, and understanding on our part that Mexico is to reconquer the lost territory in Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona. I think it's the Zimmermann telegram. Woohoo!
Technological advancements before and during World War I caused the way that war was to be fought to change forever. This was the first war in which people started digging into the ground to protect themselves. This was due to the vast amounts of weaponry that was introduced and was able to obliterate anyone at the end of the barrel in ways never previously thought possible.
This was the first war that saw tanks and planes in widespread use. While both of these were extremely rudimentary and would often not work, they had a large part in the war. Tanks were used to cross the no-man's land between the trenches, because anyone who wasn't in a tank attempting to cross the no-man's land would be mowed down by machine guns. Flamethrowers were invented in 1901, but their potential wasn't realized until late World War I. They were used to flush out soldiers from bunkers or other enclosed spaces. Initially, planes were thought to be of little combat use. One British general even said that the airplane is useless for the purposes of war. Because generals did not see their potential, they are generally only used for reconnaissance. The only time there was aerial combat was when two planes came across each other. Later on, however, people believed that planes had a much larger value and two new forms of aircraft were developed, the fighter and the bomber. Zeppelins played a large part in the early war for reconnaissance and for bombing. Because they were able to fly so high, they were hard to shoot down until later on in the war when new bullet technologies were developed. Since they flew so high, they were not very effective bombers, but the Germans used them to instate fear in the people below.
World War I had a drastic effect on America both during and after the war. During the war, total war was instituted, which pushed all industrial production towards the war effort. And then after the war, the youth went on a cultural rebellion against the ways of their parents. Also due to the Bolshevik Revolution, which occurred in Russia during the war, many people were worried that a communist revolt would also occur in the United States.
During the war, it seemed necessary to stir up anti-German sentiment to induce men to volunteer or accept the draft, and to induce Americans in general to make the sacrifices necessary. Heavy propaganda was used to motivate the isolationists at home. Wilson created the Committee on Public Information to build support. They often used muckraking tactics against the Central Powers to conjure up American support for the Allies. The Food Administration was created to encourage Americans to ration food so more resources were able to get to the soldiers fighting in Europe. As America got more deeply involved in the war, opposition against the war also grew. To combat the opposition, Wilson passed the Espionage and Sedition Act in 1918.
World War I meant a lot more to American history than just the fighting in Europe. At this time, Americans' freedoms and lives were more restricted than they have ever been before. The Espionage and Sedition Acts put out harsh punishments against anyone who spread information intended to interfere with American war effort. This essentially made all speech against the war illegal.
World War I would be the precursor to the much greater conflict of World War II. The new devastating technology forever changed the way people saw and fought wars. In a way, World War I caused two of the most influential time periods of the United States history. Horrible conditions in Russia caused by the slow, brutal, and unsuccessful nature of the war led to the Communist Revolution. Bolsheviks, led by Lenin, would overthrow the Russian Tsar and bring the country out of the war. Lenin's communist views would clash with US capitalism in a bitter Cold War that would last for the rest of the 21st century. The Treaty of Versailles would also be a leading cause of World War II. Although Woodrow Wilson would push for a more forgiving agreement, the Allies were stubborn and set out to punish Germany for their war crimes. In the end, Germany had to pay large war reparations, and although the treaty was intended to stop a Second World War from ever happening, it turned out to be one of the leading causes of Hitler's rise to power. As Marshal Ferdinand Foch almost perfectly predicted at the time, this is not peace, it is an armistice for 20 years.